When it comes to spies and the big screen, no figure stands taller than James Bond. But while 007 might still be the king of the spy movie, even with that dreaded Amazon acquisition now complete, these non-Bond highlights prove that there's plenty more to the genre than shaken martinis and a freshly pressed tuxedo. I'm Ewan, you're watching What Culture, and here are the 10 best spy films that aren't James Bond. Number 10. The Manurion Candidate, 1962. The legendary John Frankenheimer's 1962 film, The Manurion Candidate, is definitive Cold War paranoia, an outrageous conspiracy thriller that took Red Scare anxieties to new extremes and prophetically foreshadowed a decade that would come to be defined by assassination, suspicion, and conspiracy. Based on the Richard Condon novel of the same name, The Manurion Candidate took inspiration from real-life musings and theories regarding communist brainwashing attempts and sleeper agents following the conclusion of the Korean War, focusing on a communist plot to use a captured US serviceman, Raymond Shaw, played by Lawrence Harvey, to assassinate a presidential candidate and send the US into political turmoil. At times, The Manurion Candidate feels like a proto-70s conspiracy thriller, with Frankenheimer fusing noir influences with psychedelia to impart the kind of paranoid atmosphere that director Alan J. Pakula would perfect with his films Clute and the similarly assassination-minded The Parallax View, which were released in 1971 and 74 respectively. Frankenheimer would again return to the same subject matter with 1964's 7 Days in May, which dwelled heavily on the assassination of JFK. The Manurion Candidate also features a fierce against-type performance from Angela Lansbury, who plays Shaw's mother, Eleanor. While not Frankenheimer's greatest film, nor his best spy movie, The Manurion Candidate remains a touchstone of 60s cinema and exemplifies why he was one of the most exciting newcomers from that decade. Number 9. Black Hat. As has been sadly typical of Michael Mann's films in the last 2 decades, Black Hat didn't receive the praise or attention it merited when it premiered in 2015. A gutsy cybercrime thriller that once again brings Mann's delicious fusion of emotion and technical authenticity to the foreground, Black Hat surely has to be next in line for a reappraisal following the cult resurgence of his 2006 all-vibes classic, Miami Vice, with both films sharing the same digital beauty and thematic heft the director honed with 2004's Collateral. And like Miami Vice, Black Hat is a film about longing. In this case, to escape a world shaped by terror and digital intrusion. But it's also a film rooted in geopolitics and espionage, with a story focusing on 2 former college friends, one an officer in the Chinese Army's cyber warfare branch, and the other an incarcerated hacker, teaming up to take on a group of cyber criminals who are targeting both Chinese and American financial and energy infrastructure. Lee Hum-wang and Chris Hemsworth play the aforementioned duo, with Mann rounding out his cast with a formidable contingent of talent, including Tang Wei, Viola Davis, and a scene-stealing Holt McCallany. The real star here, though, is the vibrational frequency of Mann's direction, which ensures Black Hat isn't just another globe-trotting action film, but instead a unique, emotive contribution to the espionage genre. Given the tepid response it received in 2015, the likelihood is that a great many Mann aficionados and a great many more spy movie enjoyers are yet to take a chance on Black Hat. Fortunately, Arrow Video released a brilliant 4K edition of the film in 2023, which is well worth a purchase, I can tell you. Number 8. Sneakers. From one hacker film to another now, and it's time to sing the praises of Phil Alden Robinson's excellent cult spy movie classic, Sneakers. Released in theaters in 1992, Sneakers is probably my platonic ideal of what a 90s movie should be. It's stylish, warm, and just overall pleasant to be around, largely due to the cast being stuffed to the gills with charming people. Like, let me just list off the cast for you right now. We got Robert Redford, Sidney Poitier, Dan Aykroyd, Mary McDonnell, River Phoenix, and personal favorite, David Strathairn. Like, how do you beat that? You don't. It's Basically, movie perfection. A reflection on boomer rebellion in the digital age, and a thrilling, whip-smart caper comedy that involves CIA and NSA intrigue, Sneakers stands out precisely because it's so unlike most of the spy films from that decade. Its approach is humorous, but sincere, with the overall comedy never diminishing the stakes of the plot, which features genuine menace at times, but never in a way that jars tonally with those precious moments of levity. When people say they don't make them like they used to, they're really talking about Sneakers. Number 7. Ronin. The second Frankenheimer banger on this list. Frankenbanger? I don't know, we'll workshop it. 1998's Ronin is a spy thriller that, in truth, has never really received the flowers it deserves. Ronin, so titled because of its mercenary central characters, starts as a heist thriller but steadily evolves into this amazing post-Cold War meditation on spycraft and the nature of espionage in the wake of the Iron Curtain's collapse, essentially posing the question of, what do Cold Warriors do with no Cold War? J.D. Zeke and David Mamet's script entails plenty of twists and turns that build to a captivating conclusion. Hint, the new world isn't so different to the old, all the while delivering shootouts and set pieces that stand toe-to-toe with Michael Mann's Heat, as well as a car chase that usurp the French connections as arguably the greatest in movie history. Again, as with fellow 90s spy classic Sneakers, Ronin is also elevated by its ensemble, which is led by Robert De Niro in a truly underrated turn as an ex-CIA agent known only as Sam. The film's ranks are further bolstered by decade staple Jean Reno, Natasha McElhone, Stellan Skarsgård, Sean Bean, and Jonathan Pryce, with each lending their talents perfectly to a story mired in deception and fragile alliances. Also, I love the way that Sean Bean says, "Bit of raspberry jam." It's a great line read, and I'm sure people who've also watched the movie will agree that he's a lot of fun in this one. Either way, all the more fascinating for its historical context, but equally compelling just for the technical engineering of Frankenheimer's direction, Ronin is essential 90s cinema. Do not keep sleeping on it if you haven't seen it yet. Number 6. The Bourne Identity. While it was director Paul Greengrass who defined the Bourne aesthetic with sequels The Bourne Supremacy and The Bourne Ultimatum, there's a lot to be said about the calmer, more slow burn qualities of the Doug Liman-directed original, The Bourne Identity, which remains my personal favorite of the trilogy. The arrival of Jason Bourne, and with him Matt Damon as an action star, seemed to antiquate James Bond almost instantly, with Pierce Brosnan's last outing as 007, Die Another Day, releasing the same year to pretty bad reviews and a middling commercial reception. Bourne necessitated Bond's evolution, but its legacy goes way beyond the galvanization of what was then a flagging franchise. It brought 70s-style conspiracy and paranoia into the 21st century, and with it, a new approach to action. The Bourne Identity also heralded the arrival of Tony Gilroy as a master of cutting dialogue, plotting, and suspense. Gilroy was involved in the first 3 Bourne screenplays and directed the underrated spin-off, The Bourne Legacy, and brought believability, pathos, and suspicion to the fore with his adaptations of Robert Ludlum's novels, providing the perfect framework for Lyman and then Greengrass to develop their own trailblazing genre aesthetics. Visually, it's far removed from the shaky kineticism of Greengrass's sequels, but that slower, more lingering photography results in some of the series' best moments of suspense. There are a couple of Y2K quirks and tonal anachronisms, but otherwise, The Bourne Identity remains a touchstone for the 21st century spy thriller. Number 5. The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. It's hard to think of an author whose name looms larger on the espionage genre than John le Carré. While Fleming defined the image of the post-war spy in popular culture, le Carré's work cut deeper to the bone, avoiding notions of wartime adventure to tell stories drawn from his own experiences as an agent for MI6 during the Cold War. He'd begun his writing career while working in British intelligence, transitioning to the line of work full-time after his cover was blown by one of the Cambridge Five, an event that formed the basis for perhaps le Carré's most famous work, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which was adapted first as a TV series starring Alec Guinness as the stoic George Smiley in 1979, and then as a film in 2011, with Gary Oldman taking on the role. But the author's first major success was published a decade earlier, The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, which was itself adapted into a film in 1965. Nothing less than a devastating suffusion of noir and post-war British realism, director Martin Ritt deftly navigated the chilly, intricate, and discombobulating nature of le Carré's novel, depicting spycraft not as a glamorous, exciting series of jaunts, but as a bleak, zero-sum game of chess, where the board is stacked with pawns waiting to be sacrificed. Superbly orchestrated by Ritt, with typically sublime photography from Oswald Morris, plus an intoxicatingly fatigued performance from Richard Burton, The Spy Who Came In From the Cold is a masterpiece, and one everyone should watch. Number 4. Mission Impossible. There's a recent school of thought with the Mission Impossible franchise that it only really reached a peak with the arrival of director Christopher McQuarrie, who took the baton from Brad Bird's revitalizing Ghost Protocol and went on to deliver its series' best entries Rogue Nation, Fallout, and Dead Reckoning. While it is true that McQuarrie has produced seminal work on the series, it may be just as true to say that everyone is a little too hasty to forget the series' roots, which are planted in iconic fashion by Brian De Palma in 1996. In other words, the first Mission Impossible is a film I think we all take a little for granted. Like The Matrix 3 years later, Mission Impossible was immediately absorbed into pop culture iconography, and through that has been defined as a movie of set pieces rather than as a gripping, inventive recalibration of a dormant TV show. Everyone knows the bombastic, orchestral Danny Elfman theme, the bead of sweat that almost gives Ethan Hunt away when he's suspended from a ceiling, and of course the Eurotunnel finale, which sees Cruise tussling with Jean Reno, him again, and Jon Voight at high speeds. Those set pieces are all wonderful, but their impact has been unjustly diminished through parody when individually they're some of the best action moments of the 1990s. De Palma also lives up to his reputation as a master of suspense, threading together an intriguing, twist-heavy plot that, controversially, redefined its source material, all while layering in plenty of paranoid tension and character drama. That is a lot to juggle, but De Palma did so perfectly. It could be argued that better things were still to come, but that doesn't mean we should stop giving the first Mission Impossible its well-deserved bouquet. Number 3. The Ipris File. It's no surprise that the various adaptations of John le Carré's novels emerged as the most notable antidote to Bond during the 1960s, cut as they were from a more contemporary political context. But what is interesting is that another 007 challenger emerged from within its own home that very same decade. The Harry Palmer films, adapted from a series of novels by Len Deighton, emerged under the eye of Bond producer Harry Saltzman following Deighton's involvement with From Russia with Love, and also brought in the likes of Bond alumni Peter R. Hunt, Guy Hamilton, and John Barry. However, even with all that Bond DNA coursing through its veins, Palmer emerged as his own distinct force, featuring in 3 films from 1965 to 1967, the first of which, The Ipris File, is surely one of the best British films from that decade. Directed by Sidney J. Furie, shot by Otto Heller, and edited by Hunt, whose frenetic editing techniques defined the early Bond films and resulted in him directing the series' near-best installment on Her Majesty's Secret Service, Ipris was like le Carré on an acid trip, combining Manurion Candidate psychedelia with Cold War paranoia, kitchen sink instincts, and 60s gloss to deliver something uniquely stylish and gripping. Centered around Michael Caine's Palmer, a working-class Cockney crook pressed into the employ of the intelligence services, Ipris's story unfolds like origami, each discovery forcing a re-evaluation of the events immediately preceding until finally the truth is revealed. A mind-bendingly good classic that features Caine in one of his finest ever performances. Number 2. North by Northwest. Frequently regarded as Alfred Hitchcock's finest ever film, 1959's North by Northwest could also lay claim to being the most iconic production of the 20th century. So memorable is Cary Grant's escape from his biplane piloting pursuer in the film's second act, as well as that amazing finale on Mount Rushmore. However, North by Northwest is also a prodigious entry in the spy genre itself, forerunning Bond and his siblings with a blistering blend of art-pop flavored suspense, romance, and humor, as Grant's Roger Thornhill is embroiled in a comedy of errors that entails assassination, subterfuge, and conspiracy. It is Hitchcock at his authoritative peak. North by Northwest marked the third collaboration between the director and Grant, and also saw the involvement of Bernard Herrmann and Saul Bass, who both had a hand in cultivating the immortal sound and imagery of Psycho a year later. The end result is nothing less than joyous, with Thornhill navigating an increasingly absurd set of circumstances as he tries to understand his role in a messy web of spycraft. In short, it's a perfect creation, one of many Hitchcock films that created a gargantuan legacy. And number 1, The Hunt for Red October. The Hunt for Red October might be a submarine thriller, but its story, adapted from the Tom Clancy novel of the same name, is rooted in espionage. Set during the twilight of the Cold War, Die Hard director John McTiernan's film centers around a defecting Soviet naval officer called Marco Ramius, who has been commissioned on a state-of-the-art first-strike nuclear submarine capable of eluding NATO detection. The catch? Well, his would-be ally, the United States, has no way of determining whether Ramius's actions are a move to defect, or are in fact an attempt to launch a rogue strike on her territory. CIA analyst and naval historian Jack Ryan is the fish out of water attempting to prove that Ramius has noble intentions, but he's in a race against time to prove that theory, with the Soviet Navy in hot pursuit of the captain, and the US between two minds about whether to resolve the threat with extreme prejudice, i.e. blow the Red October straight to Kingdom Come. It's the perfect stage for McTiernan, who brings the human qualities of an apocalyptic story to the surface in much the same way he did on Die Hard, once again ably aided by cinematographer Jan de Bont, who turns in his most impressive work behind the camera. Binding this all together is the cast, led by Alec Baldwin as Ryan and Sean Connery as Ramius. The two convey such an instant affection and warmth in their few scenes together that it feels borderline romantic. So potent is the sense of relief McTiernan conjures once the tension of the preceding 2 hours has finally been released. Both actors are complemented by the likes of Scott Glenn, Sam Neill, and James Earl Jones, the latter of whom returned in 2 further Jack Ryan films directed by Philip Noyce, Patriot Games and Clear and Present Danger, in which Baldwin was replaced as Ryan by Harrison Ford. Now, Ford is solid in those 2 films, particularly the second, which swaps the outlandishness of the former for something much more grounded and politically intriguing, but neither holds a candle to McTiernan's Saul Clancy adaptation. Releasing in 1990 at the cusp of the Cold War's conclusion, The Hunt for Red October feels like a punchy closing statement on an era of spy cinema, as the old world was torn up and nuclear Armageddon, however briefly, relented. In my view, no other film better typifies the genre's non-Bond potential than it.